So, how exactly would the sun wipe out every single dollar in your bank account and every GPS coordinate on your smartphone without firing a single bullet or dropping a single 5,000-pound bomb? The answer is simple, but absolutely brutal. The very star that sustains our life is also a silent, massive killing machine, and right now it is aiming directly at our planet. We call it the ghost from the sun. It's an invisible, high-speed phantom, a massive wall of ionized plasma traveling at blistering speeds of over 1,000,000 miles per hour. This isn't just light or heat. It's a physical force capable of snapping our global infrastructure in half. But here is the major problem. Most of us believe our 21st century technology is an invisible dome, a perfect shield that keeps our digital lives safe. We trust the grid to be permanent, but the reality is far more fragile than you can imagine. Imagine a scenario where the atmosphere itself appears to catch fire, where the very wires in your walls begin to weep sparks, and where the entire global financial system vanishes in a single heartbeat. If the exact same event that struck in 1859 were to repeat itself tomorrow morning, would our magnetic shield be enough to keep the world running? The answer is almost certainly no. It wouldn't be a swift, clean victory for our modern world. It would be a grueling, high-risk descent into a reality without power, without communication, and without a way home. To understand the nightmare we are currently facing, we have to go back to the moment the ghost first arrived. It started in the late summer of 1859 in the cramped, quiet offices of a telegraph station, where the machines were about to wake up and speak on their own. Imagine the night of August 28, 1859. For the average person, the world was a quiet, predictable place. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky didn't just turn dark, it erupted. This brings us to phase one of the disaster, the fake beauty. In places like Hawaii, Cuba, and even the Bahamas, regions that had never seen a northern light in recorded history, the heavens were suddenly draped in blood-red curtains and emerald ribbons of light. It was so intense, so unnaturally bright, that birds began to chirp in the middle of the night, and laborers in the Rocky Mountains woke up, started cooking breakfast, and prepared for their shift, fully convinced it was already dawn. People were singing in the streets, marveling at what they thought was a celestial gift. But they were looking at a knife, a silent, invisible blade of ionized plasma descending from the sun at over 1,000,000 miles per hour, aiming directly at the heart of their civilization. They didn't know it yet, but the very atmosphere was becoming a massive, surging battery. But here is the major problem. While the world looked up in awe, the internet of the 19th century was about to scream. This brings us to phase two, the rebellion of the machines. Back then, the telegraph was the pinnacle of human connectivity, a global web of copper wires and brass keys that allowed information to travel at the speed of thought. But as the ghost from the sun made landfall, those wires became possessed. This is the hidden minefield of the 1859 storm. Operators in Philadelphia and Boston reported sparks leaping from their equipment, some as long as several inches, setting their logbooks and station curtains on fire. Imagine sitting at your desk and watching your computer monitor suddenly weep fire. It gets worse. Even after the operators disconnected the batteries, the literal power source for the entire system, the machines kept working. The atmosphere was so saturated with electromagnetic energy that the telegraph lines were pulling power directly from the air itself. One operator in Washington, D.C. was struck by a bolt of electricity that traveled from his forehead to the floor, knocking him unconscious. The tools designed to connect humanity had been transformed into lethal, high-voltage weapons. The invisible phantom was no longer in space. It was inside the walls of every building on Earth. So, how do we remove this threat in the modern age? How does the United States military and our global infrastructure protect a world that is now 1 trillion times more dependent on electricity than it was in 1859? The answer lies in our modern picket line, the invisible dome of 21st century technology. We are no longer blind. 1,000,000 miles away at a gravity-stable point in space called the L1 Lagrange point, we have stationed a wolf pack of deep space sentinels. These are the SOHO and DISCO VR satellites. They are our quiet hunters. They sit safely outside the Earth's magnetic field, watching the sun's every twitch in real time. The moment a coronal mass ejection launches, a massive bubble of billions of tons of solar particles, these robotic sentries see it within seconds. They calculate the density, the speed, and most importantly, the magnetic orientation. If the magnetic field of the storm is aligned south, it acts like a key, unlocking our planet's defenses and pouring all that energy into our grid. This brings us to our secondary layer of defense, the robotic motherships of our energy infrastructure. Once the satellites confirm a direct hit is imminent, the process is strictly calculated. Detect, localize, classify, identify, and isolate. We rely on the auto-kill switch philosophy. Within our national power grids, we have installed smart sensors and massive circuit breakers designed to perform a calculated suicide. If a catastrophic surge is detected, these systems will automatically shut down entire sections of the grid in a precise sequence. It's a brutal trade-off. We purposefully plunge cities into darkness to prevent the massive 200-ton high-voltage transformers from literally melting into puddles of copper and steel. You see, these transformers are the heart of our civilization, and they are not easily replaced. If they burn out, we don't just lose power for a day, we lose it for years. But what happens beneath the surface? To protect our most sensitive data, the digital brains of our banks, our hospitals, and our military, the answer is the Faraday cage. These are not traditional vaults. They are sophisticated motherships of copper and steel designed to sit safely inside hardened facilities while the electromagnetic storm rages outside. These cages act like an invisible dome, bleeding off the crushing energy of a solar tsunami before it can touch a single microchip. This is tech porn at its highest stakes. It is a war of invisible forces where a 100-foot-tall transformer is defended by a microsecond calculation. We have built a world of robotic motherships and robotic underwater cables, all guarded by a layer of layered patrol boxes in orbit. But the danger isn't over. Even with our satellites, our Faraday cages, and our auto-kill switches, the ghost from the sun is patient. It is a highly lethal device that doesn't always strike with a single blow. It lingers. Many of the particles can drift into the upper atmosphere, staying there for days, slowly degrading our communication satellites and corroding the very picket line we rely on. We are currently in a race against time, upgrading our wolf pack in orbit before the next cycle reaches its peak. Because in this scenario, there is no swift, clean victory. It is the most complex, grueling, and high-risk operation in human history. We are trying to outsmart a star. And while our technology has advanced since the telegraph operators of 1859 were struck down, the sun has only grown more active. But the question remains, what happens when the surge is too large for our ships to handle alone? What happens when the invisible dome isn't enough to stop the knife at the throat of our digital existence? The answer lies in the next phase of our survival, a phase where the very nature of our electrical world must be redesigned from the ground up. But before we get there, we have to face the nightmare scenario. The moment the atmosphere catches fire once again and our modern world is forced to confront the brutal reality of its own fragility. But for now, the quiet hunters are watching. They are the tip of the spear, the only thing standing between us and a return to the Dark Ages. But, is it enough? The answer lies in the data, the calculated risk of a civilization built on the back of a sleeping giant. But, what happens when the giant wakes up? The answer is simple, but it is terrifying. It is a fight we cannot afford to lose. But what are the actual tactics and strategy the sun uses to control this narrow corridor of space we call home? To truly understand the risk, you have to stop looking at the sun as a friendly star and start looking at it as a military commander. Think of a coronal mass ejection, or CME, not as a random cloud of gas, but as a coordinated fleet of billions of tons of ionized plasma, a massive, high-speed strike force launched with a very specific and very deadly role. In this strategic layout, the Earth isn't just a planet. It's a target with two major tactical vulnerabilities, our magnetic poles. These are our magnetic choke points. Just like the islands in a narrow strait, the North and South poles are the throat of our planet's defenses. When the sun unleashes its arsenal, it doesn't just hit us with a blunt force. It maneuvers. It aims for these funnels where our invisible dome is at its weakest. And while we rely on our advanced satellite networks and picket lines, the sun relies on a triad of forces, each with a specific and devastating role in the escalation wave of a solar war. First, there is strategy number one, the solar wind. Think of this as the constant, close-quarters intimidation. It's always there, pushing and probing our magnetic field, looking for a single crack in our defenses. Then comes strategy number two, the solar flare. This is the knife at the throat. It travels at the speed of light, arriving in mere minutes to blind our sensors and scramble our communication lanes before we even know the main attack has been launched. But the sledgehammer? The answer is strategy number three, the coronal mass ejection. This is the heavy arsenal. It's a multi-billion-ton wall of magnetic fury designed to physically crush the Earth's magnetic field and leave our civilization dead in the water. But here is the major twist. Here's where our modern technological philosophy fails us completely. For the last 50 years, the United States and the rest of the world have been obsessed with a single goal: making everything smaller, faster, and more efficient. We have shrunk the brains of our entire civilization into microscopic transistors etched onto silicon wafers. To us, this is the pinnacle of progress. But to the ghost from the sun, this is our ultimate Achilles heel. Imagine a swarm of billions of subatomic particles, the mosquito boats of the solar fleet, blasting into our atmosphere at blistering speeds of millions of miles per hour. These particles are widely dispersed, making targeting them an absolute nightmare for our traditional defenses. They don't carry explosives in the traditional sense. They don't need to. They carry something far more lethal to a digital world: a massive electrical charge. Because our modern microchips are so incredibly small, the distance between their internal circuits is now measured in the width of a few atoms. It only takes a tiny microscopic spark, a single stray electron from the sun, to jump that gap. The result is a simple but brutal scenario of technical asymmetry. A single particle, smaller than a grain of dust, can destroy a server that costs tens of thousands of dollars. Multiply that by 1 trillion, and you begin to see the nightmare. The swarm is simply too large for our defenses to handle alone. Our satellites are the first to fall. As the solar fleet arrives in orbit, our billion-dollar eyes in the sky are effectively blind. The high-energy particles target the solar panels, the infrared sensors, and the delicate control systems. Within seconds, a 1,000-ton communication satellite can be snapped in half by an internal electrical short, becoming nothing more than a drifting piece of space junk. To the sun, these massive warships of our digital age are completely visible and utterly vulnerable. But the horror doesn't stop in the vacuum of space. It follows the lines of least resistance right down to the dark, quiet depths of the ocean floor. This brings us to the scenario of 2026. We live in a world that is fundamentally connected by a global network of underwater fiber optic cables. These are the arteries of the internet, the silent hunters that carry our data across the globe. They are buried deep, hidden from the world's chaos, but they have a fatal flaw: the repeaters. Every 50 miles, these cables need an electrical boost to keep the signal moving. As the solar storm tears into the Earth's magnetic field, it creates what scientists call a ground-induced current, a massive invisible surge of electricity that finds its way into the seafloor. It doesn't cause a massive Hollywood-style explosion. It is much more ruthless. The electrical surge crawls into those repeaters like a long, patient finger tracing the seafloor, searching for a weak point. When it finds one, it fries the delicate circuitry of the entire cable. In a matter of minutes, the internet doesn't just slow down, it vanishes. It is a dead silence that blankets the entire planet. No bank transfers, no emergency calls, no GPS coordination, no way to know what is happening in the next town over, let alone the next ocean. We are left blind, deaf, and stranded in a world we no longer recognize. And then comes the climax, the moment the invisible dome finally breaks. Imagine the sky being literally torn open. This isn't just a dramatic metaphor, it is a physical reality. The Earth's magnetic field is peeled back like a layer of skin, allowing billions of amps of solar current to strike the surface of our planet directly. This is the moment our auto-kill switches fail. The surge is so massive, so fast, and so relentless that it bypasses our smartest breakers and our most expensive surge protectors. The current finds its way into the massive, high-voltage transformers at the heart of our national power grids. These are the strategic anchors of modern life, the stationary giants that keep our hospitals running and our food cold. But against 1 billion amps, they are virtually defenseless. The copper coils inside begin to vibrate with a terrifying, low-frequency hum. The cooling oil starts to boil, and then the explosion. It isn't a swift, clean victory for the grid. It is a grueling, melting destruction of concrete and steel. These transformers don't just stop working, they are physically liquidated. And here is the brutal reality: we don't have backups. These machines are not sitting in a warehouse somewhere in the Midwest. They are custom-built giants, taking years to manufacture and months to transport on specialized rail cars. If 10 of them fail at once, a city goes dark. If 100 of them fail across the United States, an entire civilization collapses. We have built a world of robotic motherships and high-tech drones, but we have left the engine room completely exposed to a strike from the heavens. 4. It is the ultimate mosquito boat tactic. The sun doesn't need to invade. It doesn't need to land a single soldier. It simply needs to disable our ability to function. It aims for the bridge to blind us, and the engine room to leave us dead in the water. To the sun, our entire electrical world is just a fiberglass speedboat, waiting to be shredded by a 1-second burst of subatomic fire. Understanding the mechanics of this ghost is the only thing that stands between us and the nightmare of a total global blackout. Third, it is the only way to ensure that when the sky turns blood red once again, we aren't just standing there, marveling at the beauty of our own destruction. Because while the crew is completely overwhelmed and the systems are dead in the water, the ultimate countermeasure isn't just defense. It's the offensive knowledge of how to shield our world before the first subatomic shot is even fired. This data doesn't just result in awareness. It results in the survival of our species. Without it, we are just waiting for the next solar swarm to blow a hole in the waterline of our civilization. We don't just tell stories. We build them from the ground up. Every single frame you saw in this video was meticulously researched and animated by hand by humans, specifically to help you navigate the most complex and hidden phenomena in our universe. Our goal is to take these massive, daunting technical concepts and translate them into a visualist language that finally makes sense of the world around us. But now, it's your turn. Imagine the ghost from the sun finally catches up to us and the invisible dome of our technology fails. If the global internet were to collapse for a full 30 days, what is the very first thing you would do to survive? How would you navigate a world that has suddenly gone silent and disconnected? Tell us your strategy in the comments below. Ultimately, we have to remember that our digital civilization is a lot more fragile than it looks. Behind the high-speed data and the glowing screens, we are still just a tiny species living at the mercy of a colossal, unpredictable giant. We haven't defeated the forces of nature. We've simply learned how to hide in their shadows for a little while longer. To join our team of researchers and animators as we decode the next evergreen mystery of our planet and beyond, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We make original videos from scratch every day just for you. Until next time, stay curious and keep watching the skies.